Sir, good evening.
Can you hear? Yeah, Sandeep.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Sandeep. I hope I'm clear.
Yes, sir, your voice is okay.
Okay, great. Thank you. So, welcome back to Talent Management. I hope you had a good lunch. Uh, we will get started from where we left off. I have changed my camera. I hope I'm visible now. Earlier, there was a problem with the camera. So, just give me a minute. I will share my screen. So, we will continue with the discussion points around talent acquisition strategy. Uh, so, as we discussed earlier, first and most important is that you need to have a very clear set of goals. What is your talent acquisition strategy? Your strategy will be developed around the goals. So, do you want to hire best in class? Do you want to hire people who may not be best in class, but who are people known for their skills and their stability? So, you may have different goals in mind, for your organization. uh, Sometimes it also happens, some of you are talent acquisition strategists and talent acquisition executives. So you may be aware that very often what happens is sometimes we deliberately do not hire the best in the market. And what could be the reason for not hiring the best in the market? Any thoughts, anyone? Why would you not want to hire the best in the market,
Actually, company is
the
looking,
best talent in the market?
yes, company is looking for right candidate on right place. So, companies prior practice doing for for selecting process part. What they believe that if right candidate selected and they good for company and maybe good for asset for company and for working culture for fitted. So, the talent management is for currently is required in for hiring a process part.
Sandeep, you were breaking up in the beginning. Can you just repeat what you said?
Actually, for hiring a candidate for right person and right place, so we using some practices like talent acquisition. So if we hire a wrong candidate for a position, so it may be hamper or losses for company.
Okay, fine. So actually, my question is slightly different. Sometimes what happens is that I have a very good candidate in the market, but I may not want to hire that very good candidate. The candidate may be from a very good engineering institute, maybe from a very good management institute, may have experience in tier one companies or tier two companies, has a lot of international exposure, but still I may not want to hire this candidate. So does that happen? And if it happens, why would it happen? That's what my question is. Yes, Divya, I think, has raised her hand.
So this the one reason could be because since the candidate is the best, he might not settle down for what may be offered to the employee, and also the opportunities that would be available for this person in the market. There could be a loyalty issue with this person. This is
Yes, very good,
how I
Divya.
feel. Yeah.
So I think the evening tea is dedicated to you. So
Great. Thanks.
yes, so this is what Divya has said is slightly counterintuitive. It is not logical, but that is real. Um, which is that sometimes you may not want to hire the best candidates in the market because you are looking for the skill set that you need is not rocket science. It's a fairly simple skill set. And the best people in the market tend to be more expensive than average. And second, like Divya said, there can be an issue with their tenure and stability. They may not stay too long in your organization. So it actually happens that the talent acquisition leaders at times decide that they will go for the tier two level talent in the market, not the best in the market, but the second or the third level talent in the market, because they are fine with the skill set. It is not extraordinary skills that is required, but what they are really looking for is stability and long tenure. So therefore, at times people deliberately do not hire the best people in the market. So again, going back to your goals, what is it that your goal is? Are you looking for stability? Are you looking for experience? Are you looking for functional depth, etc., etc.? Next, we already talked about building the employer brand. This is very, very critical nowadays, especially even more than before, because your branding exercise basically is the message that you're giving to the job market. People would want to be associated with you, or people would not want to be associated with you based on the brand perception that you have created in the market. So sometimes, of course, even if people do not respect your brand, people want to come and work for you, maybe because they don't have an alternative. But given a choice, if you are not able to build your brand in a positive way, you may have a lot of people coming in only for some time and then leaving very quickly. Next, we spoke about the talent pipeline. You should have a good pipeline, particularly for senior level profiles, because an absence at a senior level can have a very harmful effect on the business. So, therefore, it's important that you have a pipeline wherever somebody leaves, or somebody retires, or somebody maybe is not well. So, then you immediately have to press the button and get a replacement quickly. And that, how fast you're able to do, really depends on the kind of pipeline that you've built. Uh, some of you may be familiar with Stephen Covey. He says that, keep sharpening the saw. So basically, you keep doing things even when it is not urgent. Today it not may not be urgent to ensure that your pipeline is good, but it is important. So keep doing something important, the important thing, which is constantly, even when there is no uh, job requisition that you are trying to address, but please ensure that you are working to ensure that there is depth in your pipeline. uh, Make sure your employee referrals program, it should not just be employee referrals, but it should be a detailed program with clear incentives, quick payouts, um, additional bonuses if they are able to refer three or more people, etc. So build it like an internal marketing plan, and this should become one of your most steady sources of good talent. Also, remember, uh, if you are looking for a certain profile which matches the profile of existing people in your organization, this is the best channel to use. Next is your organizational goals and objectives. Of course, going back to the first point of goals, your talent acquisition strategy should be completely aligned with your organizational goals. Next is assessments. Many companies have various kinds of assessments at various levels, and of course, for technical profiles, you need to have detailed assessments. So these are assessments which need to be there in your organization and need to be standard assessments. Uh, they genuinely need to test what you are testing people for. Sometimes I see that people have assessments on English language, on communication skills, while what they are looking for really is how good these people are in handling customers. Handling customers and English speaking skills are not aligned. There is an overlap, but they are not necessarily aligned. So um, it's important to understand what exactly you're looking for. Handling a customer, particularly an irritated customer, needs patience, needs resilience, needs somebody who can negotiate. So those are the skills you need to look for, and not just basic communication skills. And last but not the least is it should be built around how do you retain your best talent. Because remember, if you're not able to retain talent, all the things that we're talking about is like a hole in a bucket. So the bucket is there, we keep putting water in it, but there is a hole at the end of the bucket, so no water will stay, and you will keep adding more and more people, and they will keep getting drained out from the bottom of the bucket. So retention is absolutely critical. Any thoughts, any observations before we move on? Okay, if not, you- so creating the pipeline, as we you know discussed, is very critical. So what are the advantages of a good pipeline? Reduce time to hire, great brand, increased offer acceptance, lesser dropouts, and benefits to candidates and the organization. So this is something which is quite obvious, and but at the same time very very important, particularly for people who are at management manager and above level of hiring. Your pipeline should be good, and you should even do targeted poaching if required. So now we will go into a little bit of depth of what is talent. Because when we are doing talent acquisition, when we are strategizing about talent acquisition, we need to understand what exactly is talent. And this is not something that you may be asked in an exam, but I would still like to go a bit deep into this, because this will help you understand a deeper aspect of talent acquisition. So the human personality is like an iceberg. There are a lot of icebergs floating around in the Antarctic and the Arctic Ocean, and these are huge chunks of ice which are kind of floating around. Anybody remembers one big accident which happened due to an iceberg?
Titanic.
Yes, very good, Sandeep. So the Titanic accident happened because Titanic was a big ship. It was a very expensive ship. In around 1911 or 12, it was sailing on in North Europe, and it did not see, but there was a big iceberg in front of it which hit the ship. And one of the reasons why it is likely that such accidents happen, because the iceberg, you can see a little bit of the iceberg on the surface, but it can be very deep inside. So human personality is something like that. You can see people, you can talk to them, you can wish them hello, how are you, and have polite conversations with them, but you may not be able to understand the depth of the personality of an individual or the specifics of a personality of an individual. Now, as talent acquisition professionals and as talent management people, it's very important for us to understand, a little bit about what personalities are. So so they are like icebergs. So there are certain things of a human personality which is observable, you can see it on the surface, and there are certain things which you cannot see. So what you can see on the surface are things like you can gauge somebody's knowledge, you can see what kind of skills they have, what are the abilities and the habits they have, good or bad, whichever. But you can see these are all observable behaviors. You can see this while you are interacting with somebody, how they come across, how they speak, how they interact with people. So these are all very obvious things. But this is not enough to understand somebody. You would appreciate that when you are hiring somebody, you have to go a bit deeper to understand that personality. So there are things about an individual which are not easy to discover. For example, the values that we carry with us. Some people have a lot of values. Some people are very concerned about other people. They ensure that other people are also comfortable. They tend to be honest. They refuse to do anything which may not be deemed as completely honest. What are the attitudes people have? An attitude can be somebody who is very pessimistic, or somebody who's very optimistic, somebody who gets angry very easily, somebody who's very patient. So these are values, attitudes, their traits and motivations. These are things which are not easy to find out about somebody. And they say that your behavior is the manifestation of all of this. And observable behavior can be changed. For example, how I greet somebody, how I interact with somebody, these are things I can change. But it's very difficult to change somebody's values, their fundamental attitude to life, their motivations, what motivates somebody. Some people get motivated by money, some people are motivated by the peer group, some people are motivated by the environment that you have in the organization. So these are things which are very difficult to change. You can change people's behaviors, which is the manifestation of all this. But the deeper reason why these behaviors are being manifested, those are very difficult to change. So you can have some personality tests to gauge people. Any test that anybody uses in this group?
Dix is there, so for behavioral checking point.
Disc, okay. Yes, very good. Disc, anybody else? Yeah, Sandeep, you were saying something?
No, sir, no, sir.
Okay. Any other test that anybody uses?
Yeah, so we had used MBTI. It was
Okay.
not for the hiring purpose, but we had started an initiative of executive coaching, and
Mhm.
that is where we had MBTI to gauge the personalities of each leader, and accordingly, find a solution how they can better their performance.
Okay. Sorry, Sneha, you're breaking up. I'm not able to get the last line.
Okay, it was basically the MBTI test we had for our senior leaders, just to assess, how they can improvise on their performances. So it was an
Okay.
internal. It wasn't used for hiring purpose, but for executive coaching purpose.
Okay. Okay. Very good. So, and good point, Sneha, because there are certain assessments like MBTI which are strictly not to be used for hiring. They can be used for developmental purposes, but not for hiring, because if you are saying that this trait is a good trait and I will hire for this and I will ignore somebody who has another trait, is not something which MBTI deems to be fair. So MBTI is an assessment which is very popular. It was devised initially by a psychologist called Carl Jung, and it was refined and improved by mother and daughter psychologists Myers and Briggs. So that's why it's known as Myers and Briggs type indicator. So so there are certain personality tests where you typically should not use them for accepting or rejecting people. You should use only for giving feedback for developmental purposes. But ultimately, even these tests may not be able to tell you a lot about an individual. For example, in Myers-Briggs type indicator, they say that that the human personality takes shape by the time a human being is about in the early 20s, and after that the personality doesn't change unless there is a life-shaking event that takes place in the person's life. Other than that, the personality by and large stays whatever it was, when it was in the early 20s. So there are other assessments. For example, Hogan assessments. Hogan is based on another psychologist's tool, and Hogan goes into the motivations and values of every individual. Also, like Sandeep talked about DISC, Hogan, MBTI also does that. uh, under stress, people behave differently. So when somebody is under stress, their personality may reveal different aspects as compared to what they are in a stable situation. So MBTI assesses people when they are absolutely comfortable, when they are there is no stress in their life, and what is it that they are like in a stable state situation. Whereas Hogan gives you an option of assessing somebody when the person is stable and also when the person is under stress. And Hogan assessments goes deep into the values, attitudes, traits, and motivations. So as a talent acquisition strategist, it's very important for us to understand that these are deeper aspects, and sometimes, especially at a leadership level, these aspects have a bearing on how people perform. So it may not be fair to reject people based on this, but definitely it's important to understand some aspects of these these aspects of personality. For example, emotions, values, motivations, thoughts, etc. Okay, so let me now give you an example. Sorry if anybody has any question. Okay, yeah.
No, sir.
So if no questions, let us proceed to understand uh, how these behavioral characteristics help us create a competency framework. Now, there can be a behavioral competency framework and a functional competency framework. A behavioral competency framework is the sort of behaviors you're expecting from your employees, and you create a framework based on that. Now, you may say that, see, everybody expects good behavior. You're absolutely right. Everybody expects good behavior. But even in goodness, there can be variety. For example, I may be expecting my employees to be very agile, very entrepreneurial, because I am a startup company. Whereas a company which is a very old and established and stable company, they may be expecting the employees to be to post first and foremost to display integrity, to display honesty and character. While a startup may be focusing, they also want integrity, of course, but they may be focusing more on how fast you can move, how entrepreneurial you are. Are you willing to grow the business yourself? Whereas a existing and old company may feel that you're not expected to grow the business, but you are expected to ensure that you follow the process. Okay. So therefore, based on the uh, behavioral aspects, you may want to create a competency framework. So here is an example of a Middle East water company called Haya Water Company, and they are looking at creating some competencies which are applicable for all roles. For example, customer orientation. They would want their employees to be customer oriented. Okay, next is teamwork. Now they would want everybody to be team oriented person. They don't want people to be individualistic. They would want people to be team oriented, and the team will be given a lot of importance. Similarly, another trait they want is good communication skills. So you want to have good communication skills. There should be an achievement orientation. People should be very keen to achieve. It should not be that, okay, I have got a job now, I'm happy and I'm just going to do 9 to 5 and I will go home at 5 o'clock and that's it. Of course, please go home at 5 o'clock, but ensure that till 5 o'clock you have given your best. Okay. And process and quality focus. Now, if you see, these are the core competencies. Now, it's very important to understand that these are competencies which everybody in the company is expected to have. However, please remember that any company is made up of multiple layers. There are senior people, there are middle people, there are junior people. So, for example, I talk about the competency called communication. Now, communication over here would mean three different things at three different levels. For the frontline staff, they should be able to communicate to their internal stakeholders and customers whatever they are trying to say. And what they're trying to say is understood as whatever they meant it to be to the listener. Okay, so that is one-to-one communication or one-to-many communication, and at a frontline level, so this is the communication that needs to happen. For middle management, communication should be how they are able to influence their teams. They may have many teams, they may have internal stakeholders, they may have external stakeholders. So the idea is, how do you communicate to all these different sets of people? It's not just to the customers or to their peers, but to various sets of customers. So they will here communication will mean not just the sender and receiver, but also maybe how to influence, how to negotiate. All of that will also be part of communication. So therefore, communication will be more complex at a middle management level. Then we come to the senior level, and here again communication will be much more complex even from the middle level, because here communication would mean how you interact, how you are able to influence, how you are able to influence the teams working below you, the teams which are then further working with the customers. So you have many layers of communication happening at the senior level. So please see this. The beauty of this is that you have the same words, and this applies to everybody in the company, but it applies differently to different levels, and therefore it has implications which are different at each level. I hope this is making sense. Any doubts, please ask.
Sir, I want to know about the process and quality focus. Being a talent management, so how we as a I don't know consider process and quality focus for employee retention.
Yes, we will talk about retention.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
There are many things we need to do. When next session we will talk about employee engagement, and how do you engage an employee so that you are able to get better productivity from every employee. And when the employee is better engaged, then they tend to stay with the organization for a longer duration than employees who are not properly engaged by the organization. So we will definitely deal in detail about that.
Right, sir.
Great. So if there are no further questions on competency, we will go and see a short video on how to do a competency based interview. Because in these kind of interviews, see, typically what happens in an interview is that we look at somebody's CV and we ask questions that what has your experience been so far. But actually you can make your interviewing skills far more effective if you base it on the competencies that you are interviewing somebody for. So the focus of the interview should be on asking specifically on those competencies. Let's say I say I'm a manager and I have a lot of expertise in communication. So my interviewer should ask me, okay, good, that's good to hear that. Tell me about your experience in communication, effective communication. When were you able to use effective communication and get a outcome which you were really looking for? So go into specifics. That's what a competency based interview is like, and that is what should be used more of in talent acquisition interactions rather than generic interviews. Okay, I'm moving on to the video. In case you have a problem with the audio, let me know.
I want to talk about competency-based interviews. Competency-based interviews are increasingly being used as the main recruitment process for new positions. Public sector organisations, widespread, are using competency-based interviews. They've developed their own competency frameworks and they assess candidates against those. Increasingly now, we're now seeing it coming into private sector organisations as well. They're a very different type of interview than candidates have previously been used to, but actually they're a really good process that candidates can prepare for and can really perform very well in that competency interview environment. The theory behind competency-based interviews is that when we interview a candidate, again, and our questions are specifically focused on getting them to talk about real experiences about where they've performed against these criteria, that this is a much more effective way of assessing candidates' capability. Research has shown that competency-based interviews are 5 times more effective in making the right appointments at interviews. The difference with competency-based interviews is the questions. When you're applying for a position, on your application form, on the person specification, there will be listed a number of criteria that you're going to be assessed against. And when you arrive at interview, the types of questions you're going to be asked are going to be very different from you previously being asked. Previously, for example, on communication, you might be asked, tell us about your communication skills. In a competency-based interview, you will be asked, please give us a specific time when you communicated exceptionally well. You're required to give a specific example, not to talk in general, but to give a specific example. So when you're preparing for a competency-based interview, the first thing you need to do is you need to identify the competencies of the role. And this information will be on the job pack. It'll be on the person specification. So you need to identify what those competencies are, and then you need to start drawing back from previous experience and thinking about interview that will demonstrate those competencies. So what's your example on teamwork, on leadership, on strategic thinking, on managing in a difficult situation? These are the type of examples that you need to start to work on in terms of preparation for your interview. Now there's a way that you can structure that most effectively, and that's by using SHARE as a structure. So when we talk about SHARE, we're talking about 5 things. We're talking about, firstly, you describing the situation. So what was the situation when you demonstrated effective teamwork? H is the hindrance. What were the challenges? It's really important when you give your competency-based answers that you tell them about the challenges. If you don't tell them about the challenges in the example, then they're not going to know how good you were in terms of the results you achieved at the end. Then you talk about the action. What action did you take? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You list the action you took to demonstrate that good teamwork. The R in SHARE is the result. What was the result? What did you achieve from that example? And the E in SHARE is evaluation. What did you learn? It's really important to demonstrate your learning because it's your learning that you will bring to this position. That's what they'll be interested in. When you get into your interview situation and you have all your examples prepared in the SHARE model, it can be really useful, again, to have a very simple structure on answering these types of questions. Remember the rule of 3. We like a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's a logical way to deliver information. So with your competency-based answer, a very simple structure you can use is, for example, your panel asks you a question. Tell us about a time when you communicated a challenging message. So your introduction is, I realise that communication is going to be really important in this particular role. And I've had many experiences in previous roles where I've had to communicate challenging messages to individuals and teams. But let me tell you about this one specific time. You've introduced. Now you use your SHARE example. So you take them through your SHARE example on communication. You talk about the situation, the hindrance, the challenges, the action, the result, and the evaluation. When you finish delivering your SHARE, you then move on to your conclusion. And what can be really useful to do in your conclusion is to summarise 3 points that make you an exceptional communicator in challenging situations. So, in your ending piece, in summary, I know that this example demonstrates my strengths in communicating in challenging circumstances. And I know what makes me a good communicator in these types of situations is that I take on board all the team's needs, I listen very carefully to concerns and ideas, and then I evaluate the effect of communication. So we've got our beginning, our middle, and the end. This is how we approach competency-based questions.
Great. Any thoughts on what we just saw? Do we use similar methods of interviewing people?
Yeah, that's a great practice for hiring a great talent for any company. So they assessed various, like they are assess the communication part, their strategic value, and career experience assessment. It's good for right place, right candidate for right place.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else? Any thoughts?
Many times, like interviewer ask, rather than just asking the strength or weakness, they tell to they
So,
ask that
yeah,
give any
yeah.
example related to it.
Sorry.
They tell like give any example related to a strength and weakness. So
Yes, yes. That is something that we do very often. The strength and weakness part. But
I
this structure of share. Yeah, somebody's saying something. Sorry.
sorry, I wanted to ask
Yeah, Parul.
something.
Yeah, Parul.
I understand the model of competency-based interview, and if I'm not wrong, BEI model is also very much the
Yeah,
similar behavioral event-based
right.
interview.
Absolutely, absolutely. The same.
Having said that, a lot of it gets solved, let's say, from the hiring perspective, hiring team. But how do we ensure, or what can be done
Mhm.
in terms of building the capability of the hiring managers? When I say hiring managers, talking about specifically the reporting managers who are interviewing, because eventually what happens is one level of check everything, let's say, hiring team does, but somewhere they also lack the capability as to what the dialogue happens in the room with the candidate.
So, Parul, I didn't get the question. You are saying that they are not upskilled to be able to do a competency based or a BEI. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, like how can we build capability of those hiring reporting managers who, let's say, in the future rounds are supposed to take the interview? Um, Building the capability. So with competency-based interview, there is a need to build capability for the TA team. That is one, and there is also a need to build the
Right.
capability of the managers who will be taking it.
Right, right. You're absolutely right. For example, in one of the organizations where I worked, I was the hiring manager. I was not into talent acquisition, but I was the hiring manager who would time to time require and hire people. So, me, along with a lot of operations managers, we were taken through a training on BEI. And we understood how the interviewing is to be done, what is the structure of an interview, how a competency based interview takes place, and there was a subsequent certification on this. So I think one of the best ways to go about this is that all the hiring managers, this is hiring is a very important part of your managerial responsibilities. So everybody should go through a certification program on this, so that they are able to, when they are hiring, the TA team of course will hire, but they are also able to add value in terms of seeing whether the candidate really fits, and how to ensure that they are getting the best candidate. So I think that is something which works.
I hear you and I understand the solution, but my problem statement here is this: that many a times these solutions, when we have to run it for field teams, for instance, or
Mhm.
uh, in scenarios like I am a very classic example of not for profit. means that whatever strategies we are rolling out, we'll have to think 13 times in terms of creativity, because budgets will always be a constraint for us.
Mm.
Considering such kind of scenario, building capability is yes,
Right.
but how can we do that without maybe a very long certification program, or which can be eased out in terms of building that understanding? I know maybe I'm asking for shortcut, but not shortcut, but something that is quick in terms of building that ability in managers.
Yeah. So there are various ways of doing it. Like you can have a elaborate certification session on competency-based interviewing skills, or you can. Many organizations have a step-up program for managers or people who get promoted internally. They have a managerial induction program, and it can be embedded in the managerial induction program itself, so that apart from team handling, team synergy, they also learn about interviewing skills and acquiring talent. So that can be made a part of the core training that the managers or the people managers go through. It doesn't have to be very elaborate, but just make it a part so that people are at least sensitive about how to hire people. This is a very critical skill, because it has a bearing on your brand identity. It has a bearing on your ability to attract talent. It has a bearing on who you are able to attract. Everything. I have come across a lot of candidates who have told me that the initial experience was good. We really look up to your brand and we respect your brand. But when I was sent to meet the person who's actually hiring, she did not behave well with me. She kept looking at her laptop. She did not ask me specific questions. So I'm confused. Am I required in the system, or am I not? And that stems from the fact that the hiring manager is not sensitive or adequately upskilled.
This is helpful.
Sure,
Thank
sure.
you.
Great. So let's move on. So as we were discussing earlier, that another aspect nowadays, of course, is the technology, the role of technology in talent acquisition. So this is becoming, of course, very critical, and we know that technology is not just important in talent acquisition; it's important now everywhere. Anything you do, whether it is in medicine, whether it is engineering, whether it is cloth manufacturing or anything, there is a huge element of technology embedded in the processes. So similarly, that is there in talent acquisition as well, and it makes sense to use as much technology as you can. So how you advertise, what forums you're advertising, that makes a lot of difference. For example, if you want frontline staff, then maybe social media can be a good platform for you. If you are trying to hire mid-level mid managers or senior managers, maybe LinkedIn is a very good platform, and similarly other job sites are good platforms. So it will depend a lot in terms of what profile you're looking for, and therefore you can match the profile and the seniority of the profile to the platforms in which you can search for them. Of course, now there is AI, and AI further refines your search. It throws up names and inputs which are even more refined than what it used to be earlier. Personally, I don't think AI is kind of that significant as it is made out to be. Every 30 or 40 years, there are very serious innovations that take place in the industry, and every time the innovation happens, there is a lot of noise about that innovation. Similarly, AI is the new kid on the block, so to say. So everybody is really excited about AI, but I feel a large part of the excitement is created deliberately to attract a lot of investment for the AI companies. And of course, they are going to be further be refining their AI engines. But AI definitely is very important, but may not be as mature as it is made out to be in the short term. Maybe in the longer term, it is going to mature even more and give us a lot of value. So anybody who's using AI in their talent acquisition strategies currently and may want to share. Okay, so silence tells me that nobody is really using it. But I think there is a there is a layer of AI which is coming in everywhere in every ATSs. So there is ATS also mentioned, and your applicant tracking systems are basically your servers where you have all the applicant data, and you have various permutations, combinations of the data, by date of birth, by seniority, by tenure, by function, etc. And you can get various kinds of reports generated from your ATS. Some companies use writing analysis, and this can also be automated. There are tools which get this done. Again, going back, I think, to a point which Sneha made about MBTI, that MBTI should not be used for hiring. Similarly, personally, I don't think writing analysis is a surefire way of hiring good talent, but some companies do use it. And well, I reserve my judgment on that. Personally, I don't agree with this, but this is definitely used in the industry, particularly outside India. I don't think in India we use too much of writing analysis, but in some other countries they do. So therefore, technology is absolutely critical, and you have to adopt technology. The sooner you adopt it, the sooner you leverage it, the better it is. You will get better outcomes, and social media is here to stay. So that is a huge platform which was not there earlier to for hiring managers, but today I think there is a huge explosion of data available in social media. So that is another source that we can use. So therefore, I think it's an exciting time for the way technology is being used in talent acquisition, and we just need to be in tandem in with the opportunity that platforms like LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, uh, Twitter, etc. throw up. So that just makes your search better and sharper. Okay, so let's move on to a case study. So here, would anybody like to read the case study? Maybe till the fourth paragraph.
Okay. May I, sir?
Yes, Jyoti, please.
KPMG operates in 144 countries. The organization keeps in touch with new and prospective graduate applicants via Twitter and Facebook. It also provides details of the selection process of its website. Stage 1, Online application form. This covers academic background and work experience. Stage 2, Situational judgment. This is multiple choice test featuring a series of hypothetical and challenging situations that could encountered as a trainee with KPMG. Stage 3, Online
As a
numerical.
trainee.
Hmm. Online numerical and verbal reasoning test. Applicants who are successful with their initial application and SJT are asked to take numerical and verbal tests designed specifically for KPMG. Stage 4, Digital submission. Applicants who are successful in the online tests are invited to submit a digital submission in audio format. This 90 seconds audio gives candidates the chance to demonstrate their communication skills. Up to this, or stage 5 also?
Yes, yes. Fine. So anybody else would like to read the last paragraph?
May I, sir?
Yes, please.
State 5. Launchpad recruitment event.
Please go
If
ahead.
the, if the digital submission is successful, applicants are invited to attend final stage of the selection process. During the day, candidates will given the opportunity to demonstrate the KPMG behavioral capabilities as well as learn more about career opportunities and meet with partners and graduate trainees.
Great. Thank you. So you can see it's very simple. KPMG, of course, it's one of the big fours companies, and it operates in 144 countries, and it keeps in touch with new and prospective graduates via Twitter, Facebook, etc. And it also gives a clarity on what is the selection process it has. So the first stage is online application. This covers the academic background, work experience, and basically the resume of the candidate. Stage 2 is situational judgment test. So this is a multiple choice situation featuring a series of hypothetical and challenging situations that could be encountered as a trainee with KPMG. Third is the online numerical and verbal reasoning test. So this is again, it's a fairly complex. This is a fairly complex. This is a difficult test, and applicants are who are successful with initial application and the situational judgment test are asked to take the numerical. So you can see this is a, you qualify one level, then you come to the next. You qualify the next level, then you can go to the next. So it's not that you have to take all of this. Only these are, each is a qualifying round. Okay, you cannot just go to the next round without qualifying for the previous round. Stage 4 is a digital submission. So applicants who are successful in the online test are invited to submit a digital submission in audio format. So this 90-second audio gives candidates the chance to demonstrate their communication skills. And only if they are able to clear this stage, which is stage 4, then they are invited to the Launchpad recruitment event, which is a in-person event. So if the digital submission is successful, then applicants are invited to attend the final stage of the selection process. During the day, the candidates will be given an opportunity to demonstrate the KPMG behavioral capabilities. So like I was saying, that every organization will have a set of behavioral capabilities or competencies that they would like to see in a candidate. So similarly, people will be expected to demonstrate the behavioral capabilities as well as learn more about career opportunities and meet with partners and graduate trainees. So this is the hiring process. So stage 4 is a digital submission, and then stage 5 is the Launchpad recruitment event. Okay. So now what we need to do in the case study is, first, the digital submission stage 4 has replaced a 45-minute interview. So earlier they used to interview the candidates, but now they simply ask people to send a 90-second audio clip saying why they are a good candidate, what qualifies them to be a good candidate. So do you think there are any advantages or disadvantages of this change for the organization? Okay, so how is it advantage? If it is an advantage, how is it disadvantage, okay, for the organization and for the candidates? Second question is, what criteria should KPMG use to measure the effectiveness of the Launchpad recruitment event? So now the fifth stage, as we saw, was the Launchpad recruitment event. So what criteria to find out if this final stage is more successful as compared to what was happening before? So these are the two questions. You can take a snap of these two questions, and also you can take a pic of the case study if you wish to. So what we will do is we will discuss in two groups, and then we will come back and share our recommendations for question 1 and question 2. Is that clear?
So can you
Okay, sir.
go back to the first slide?
Yes. You can take a screenshot of this. Okay, so we are going to get divided into two groups. Just give me a minute. Okay, I'm starting the breakout rooms. Okay. Hi, welcome back. So, I hope you had some interesting discussions. So, would anybody like to share your insights into how the changed KPMG process is going to be more effective? And if not more effective, then why would you think so?
Parul has got a very. Am I audible? No. Parul has got very valid point. Because in the existing KPMG, they do not have any group behavioral skills exhibition.
Hmm.
It's all about individual. They are submitting something, and it's going in that way only, solo way. But there is no group behavioral exhibition or their own leadership skills exhibition. Nothing. So that area, if we can improvise in this KPMG, then that could be more useful for the company itself.
Okay, good point. Um, fine. Anybody else would like to add? What about the other group? What about the other group? So this is a discussion in one group. What about the other group? Your observations.
So in room two, we discussed the first question, like what are the advantages and disadvantages of digital submission. So
Hmm.
advantage will be it will save the time. Like as if we take one candidate, it was taking 45 minutes
Hmm.
per candidate, 45 minutes. So now they have to only send 90-second audio. So it will
Right.
save the time. But with that disadvantage would be that
Hmm.
they won't be able to see the body
Yeah, very
language
good.
of the person. Non-verbal communication won't be means they won't be able to see that thing.
Hmm.
And second thing, like how they will check the authenticity of that audio. Other person, maybe their friend whose communication skills are good, he is or she is doing on behalf of that person. So difficult to check the authenticity of that.
Right. Right. Yeah, very valid points. So, see, I think what
One more point Naren has added. Naren, can you add that
they
point?
are trying to do is basically to make the process more efficient. Yes,
Hmm.
Jyoti.
Naren had one point like suitable
Mhm.
for small players. Can you
Yes.
Naren, no?
Yeah, I think it will be more suitable, not suitable for small players. Like if their hiring is limited to 10 or 15 in a month, and as compared to the big players who are hiring more than 100 uh, people in a month, so it will be more suitable to big players who are more into hiring and who have huge manpower requirement.
Yes. Yes. Yeah,
So it
Naren,
will
I agree
not be
with you
cost
that
effective. It will
this
not be
is.
cost effective for small recruiters.
Yes. 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 I agree with you. I think basically what they're trying to do is that 45-minute interview used to be a long process. And to interview every candidate on a 45-minute interview is very extensive. It takes a lot of time. And like Naren said, that they are into bulk hiring, maybe 100, 200, 300, maybe even more recruits are being hired. So to make it more efficient, they would have a 90 seconds audio clip, and from that they can make out from the way the person communicates, the way the person intonates, that is the person fitting the KPMG criteria or not. So communication is a basic skill, and they can gauge whether this candidate is fitting that skill or not. Today you also have AI which you can introduce over here, and AI can tell you on maybe 20 to 30 parameters if this tonality, this way of putting a point across suits your requirements or not. Now, 45 minute used to be too long. Over here now it becomes very efficient. Then they call for a in-person interaction, which is the Launchpad recruitment event, where people interact with the partners and with other successful candidates, and they are gauged, they are checked more holistically in terms of, the interview would have been, a one to one, or maybe a one to two to three people, a panel interview. But here they are exposed in an informal environment, and they are gauged, so the communication skills is already fine, because at stage 4 they discuss the communication skills are okay. Now in stage 5 they will look at you holistically, you as a person, you with a personality, and you how you come across to various stakeholders. So basically the fifth level is a more holistic way of judging somebody, when you do not just want to see their functional skills, but you want to evaluate them as individuals. Earlier interview was doing that, but interview was not effective, in the sense that it's like, for each candidate they had to give 45 minutes. Here they can get all the candidates together, and have observers who are observing their behavior, and give them a certain rating, and then in one event they can uh, take a call on all the candidates who get through. So basically it becomes more holistic, it becomes more efficient. That is the change that they have been able to bring about. So that's really what they are looking for. Anybody else would like to add to this? So for example, I used to work for a startup many years ago. Those days they would known as dot coms, and that startup had a criteria where anybody who used to be hired, first of all HR would meet them, and before, if HR found them suitable, then they would have an informal interaction, a coffee table discussion with three senior employees who have been in the company for more than 6 months. So they would take that person out for a coffee in a informal setting. Let's say you go to a Costa Coffee or Barista or somewhere, and you have a 1 hour to 1 hour 30 minutes chat with that individual, to gauge the cultural fitment with that individual. If the cultural fitment is there, then the offer would be rolled out. So here KPMG is also trying to do something similar. They would look at the candidate holistically. Interview is sometimes an overkill, because so many people interview. If you look at the interview pass rate, let's say it's 5%, so you are spending 95% of your energy on people who are not really clearing the metrics, and only 5% are coming through. So they basically streamlined that particular stage, and gave more importance to the holistic interaction at stage 5, which makes it actually quite efficient as well as more effective. So that's really the idea behind this change that they brought about. Any thoughts, any questions, any agreements, disagreements?
I think I'll just share one look, one of the share that I did receive back when I was interacting with group
Yes,
of
ma'am.
um, folks from the HR world in one of the forums. So I got to know that Society Generale, it's a insurance company, French insurance
Mhm.
company,
Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
and one of the hiring strategy that they adopt specifically for, let's say, senior management roles is when they're like almost have finalized the candidate. One of the last round that they conduct is to have, you can say, kind of the person is given the chance to interact with the team, and also the team interacts with the respective candidate,
Mhm.
and they will also kind of do a collaborate on particular, you can say, small assignment or a work to see how the fitment happens in the team. So it's more from the perspective of the fitment of the team and what the thought process that person brings in. But I think I was just thinking through that maybe it was sounding very great and good. Not sure how practical these kind of experiments are, because they are very time consuming. And can they be even adopted at a large scale? though it was reaping good benefits to society general for closing positions at that level.
Mhm. Yeah, I also have your doubts. Like you rightly said that is it possible to do it everywhere and on a large scale? But if you do it, with certain controls, I think it can be done, and it would be a good start when people work together on a small project and then take it from there. So, see, one of the things is that when you are serious about hiring good talent, it's important to really test out the waters. And in a way, it's good if you have the right controls. It should not, suppose in society general, they may give a very big project, which is not fair to give to somebody who is not even an employee of the company. So it has to be controlled very well. Otherwise, I think it can be successful.
Mm. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Parul. Any other observations? Anyone? Okay. If not, we will close. But I think it's pretty interesting to see these kind of changes and experiments that many companies do when they are hiring. So, particularly at a senior level, I know that
See, sir, many companies are,
a lot of
changing their
interviews take place. Sorry.
companies are now hiring matlab, in such type way they are using ATS now.
Yes. Yeah. And AI also, I think, puts in a layer of additional fitment. Uh, the it can use data crawlers and get people who are an absolute right fit
Platforms are
for the criteria
offering,
that you put in. But
yes, sir.
then your way of putting in the right criteria also has to be effective and efficient.
Sir, actually nowadays Naukri and LinkedIn are also offering AI based database for
Yeah,
sorting candidates.
that's right. Absolutely. Okay, great. So thank you for your time,
Okay, sir.
and I hope you found the session useful.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
It was insightful, sir.
We
Thank
will
you.
meet again next week, same time. Have a
Can you
great
share
week
the
ahead.
slides? Can you share
Thank
sir
you, sir.
slides, sir? PPT, sir.
Yes, yes, that will be shared with you.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Have a
Yep.
good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.